Ryan, it's so great to catch up again today. We were neighbors in Sugar House in Salt Lake City for a year or two, but however long it wasn't long enough. So I'm grateful that we can catch up again today.
Oh, I'm so grateful to be on the podcast with you.
So I've been watching your career for the last several years. You've had an incredible career, ton of success. And as you think back on that career, uh, are there any simple, practical, underappreciated lessons you've learned from your career that you would most want to pass on to future generations, your children?
Okay, so I'm going to illustrate one of those things that I would love to pass on through this story. So in 2018, I'm on vacation with my family at a resort, and we're together. And my wife is like, and this is a really embarrassing, kind of funny story that I've just decided I'm going to share for the practicality of the lesson. So we're together, and we're in at this resort. And my wife is like, hey, I've been watching these couples do acro yoga. And she's like showing me these videos. She's like, look how cool this is. We could do acro yoga together out here on the lawns. And so I'm like, you know what? Let's try it. Let's do it. Well, I had been working out again for like 2 weeks consistently. And so I had an inflated idea about where I was at in that curve. 2 weeks in, it's definitely out of shape, but feeling better. And so I start to do a simple acro yoga pose. And while I'm doing it, I'm lifting my wife. Now, I'm lifting her and I feel a snap in my back. And
Oh, geez.
I realize that my L4, L5, I've totally, I have hurt my back pretty bad, Nate. And so I feel it. I'm like ready to cry. I'm in so much pain. And mind you, people are like, okay, you were lifting your wife. Nobody wants to like get hurt lifting their wife. Well, my wife's like 100 something, 105 pounds, very, very small, light woman. And so no excuses for me. I mean, it makes it even more embarrassing for me. But I get hurt, and we're at a JW Marriott in Las Vegas, and you do not want to go to an Instacare on the Strip in Las Vegas, Nate.
Real quick, I believe that's the JW Marriott we used to stay at. It's on the northwest side of town in Summerlin, and I love that place. We used to stay there when we'd play UNLV. So
yeah, it's just in Summerlin's a nice spot, and it's kid friendly. So if you've got a family, it's a great place to go.
But I also used to work in Vegas, and I know the rest of that area, and I know Vegas well. My son was born in Vegas, so
yes. Okay, so we go to an Instacare that's as close as we can to that JW Marriott. We get there and it's just filthy. I mean, it is riddled with drug addicts, and the chairs are falling apart. It looks dirty and grungy. Coming from Utah to IHC, I mean, it looked like a stark difference in Instacares. And I'm in there and I can just see that, I'm in terrible pain, but I can see I'm just not a priority. And I'm waiting, and finally they say, okay, you can come back. And I'm telling the doctor, here's what happened. My back is just hurting so bad. I'm in so much pain. And I'm leaning over and I tell the doctor, I think I'm going to cry. I'm just in intense pain. And the doctor's giving me a shot in the behind. Well, while she goes to give me the shot, I passed out. I fainted. So I faint. I'm on the ground laying there, and there's all these doctors and nurses. I wake up and they're like, and meanwhile, I passed out with my pants down. And so I'm on the ground and they're all looking at me, and I'm thinking, I'm conscious, thinking when I'm alert, I got to pull my pants up. And I'm thinking, thank heavens I didn't hit my head on something else, and they're like, waving over me, like, wake up, Well, here's what's worse. My wife and 2 daughters were in the room, and my little girls thought I was dead.
oh my gosh.
Like, what happened to daddy? Is daddy dead? They're screaming. Meanwhile, my wife is trying to explain to him what happened and get them to regroup, and then grabs them both and takes them out of the room. So they get me kind of alert again. They give me the shot. And this is the end of the vacation. My wife rents like a Suburban, and I lay in the back of the Suburban, and it's just banging the whole time. And I'm laying and I'm just hurting so bad on this 5-hour drive. And I get home and I go to my doctor, and my doctor looks at me. He's this older gentleman right before retirement, year before retirement. And he looks me in the face, and this guy is real direct. He doesn't mince words. And he says to me, son, look, your core is weak. That's why this happened. And I'm like, I heard him say your core is weak, but more than that, I heard like your core is weak. And I realized I'm like, I need to do some work, and there's some things I need to change in my life if I want to get to where I want to go and be who I want to be. And one of those things that I realized after that moment was I needed to be more disciplined day to day in just how I took care of my body. And I lost about 20 pounds. I started juicing. I started meditating. I started making these fundamental changes in my life. And I started these exercises. Now, when this happened, they told me I needed back surgery immediately. And I decided I could beat it with discipline. So I started doing these exercises, and they actually used my x-rays for a class to show that you can reverse damage like this and not get a back surgery.
Wow.
But what I learned from the situation was that I needed, even though I had big dreams and things I wanted to accomplish, and I was running really hard for those dreams, I needed to have the daily discipline to back up my big dreams. And I think what I had at that time was a lot of big dreams, but not enough discipline to get to where I wanted to go.
You know, I didn't know you were going to share this story. And it's interesting to me because as we got on the call, I said, Ryan, you look younger than last time I saw you, which, you know, I'm now 40, and I'm sure you're experiencing this now, where you'll go a few years without seeing somebody, and then you'll see him and you'll go like, oh, wow, you've aged a lot. You know, you don't tell them that, but that's what you're thinking, like, whoa, you've aged a lot. So this is a very uncommon experience to go a few years without seeing somebody and say like, wow, you look younger. You look like a little kid.
Well, thank you for that. I'm 40 this year too. And I do feel better and have a lot more energy. And it's because since that day, for now, 5.5 years, I have not missed a day of these good habits. And they've been life-changing for me. I feel more energy, I feel healthier, I feel happier because of the good habits that I developed that came out of that crisis when the doctor was telling me, son, your core is weak. I took it to heart, but I also just realized in that moment that I was not backing up my dreams with the discipline it took to accomplish them. And I think a lot of people have great imaginations and they have big dreams, but the sacrifices and the discipline it takes to accomplish those are usually the most difficult part in the equation.
Have you publicized your workout regime, your diet? Like, is this something that you want to like share a little bit more about? How did you have that discipline? Like, how did you make these changes? Yeah, you learned your core was weak, but what is it that allowed you to be so disciplined? Basically just flipping a switch.
Well, one of the things that I realized is I really, really wanted my dreams to come true. And this was standing in the way. And I think when I had that aha moment that I needed to have more discipline to get to where I wanted to go. And meanwhile, this was kind of paralleling the company that I was building. I realized that in order for me to be the CEO that I needed to be to continue to run the company, I had to make these changes. And what I realize in a lot of situations is people have big dreams and they're on their way on the trajectory, but they're not ultimately able to get there because it takes just a little bit more discipline and effort than we're willing to put in. And that's why I see, venture-backed CEOs, Nate, 75-80% of them get replaced. And the reason for that is you have to transform as a human being along with the business. We spend a lot of time talking about how to build a big business. You know, here's the blueprint to $1 billion business. But what's the blueprint to $1 billion CEO or leader? What do they have to do to be that leader? So when we were at 600 million and 1 million, what I had to do as a CEO were dramatically to be different human beings.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that to get to my goals and dreams, I had to change, that's when I started trying a bunch of things. Now, I'm not someone who thinks you give someone, here's the 5 things to do every morning in your daily habits, and everything's going to work out in your life and you're going to be successful. I just tested a bunch of things that I read and learned. I just started trying things, and something stuck that I tested out.
For you personally.
For me personally. And
right.
I think everybody has to customize their habits to best suit them and their lives. And so for me, one of the things was there's a company called Vive Juice in Salt Lake. They deliver them every Monday, and I leave the bottles on the doorstep and they pick them up and they deliver them again the next week. And the beautiful thing is it's just efficient with my time, and there's 4 pounds of vegetables, and it's healthy, and I eat better. And one of the things I learned is make your good habits as easy as possible, you know, and bad habits, make them as hard as possible. And so for me, just having them on my doorstep made that easy and helped me form some good habits. And now, ironically, because of that juice, my whole palate has changed. I'm eating all these vegetables I never liked in the first 40 years of my life because of the juices I've been drinking.
It sounds like right out of Atomic Habits to me. James Clear's Atomic Habits books make the good habits easy and the bad habits hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, how about protein? How do you monitor other foods? So you're getting your veggies and your fruits potentially as well from these drinks. How do you manage other parts of your diet?
So I started with the juices, and then with proteins and everything else, I have protein shakes and things that I drink daily. That was hard too, because I couldn't figure out ones that agreed with my body for a long time. And I was just cycling through. And I feel like, Nate, all of these things, same thing. I started doing cold showers, and on cold showers, it was one of those things where if I take a warm shower and then churn it to cold and sit there for about 30 seconds, it wakes me up and it works really well. Some people just start the whole thing cold. So there's lots of little things like that I had to just figure out. Meditation is something that I would consider now one of the most important things I do in my life. I would say that it's made probably the most major difference to my life, meditation.
And what does that look like for you? What is your meditation? Because I know there's lots of ways to meditate. So what does that look like for you?
I tried 20 different ways to meditate, and it took me, I'd say, 2 years to actually get good at it. So Nate, it didn't come naturally to me, and it was really difficult for me. So I started trying all kinds of techniques, but transcendental meditation has been what's worked for me. And what I do is I breathe in and out of my nose about 10 times. And for some reason that helps me calm down and relax, just in and out of my nose. And that helps me settle down a little bit. And then I'm able to mentally go into meditation. And sometimes I'll do gratitude. Sometimes I'll think about problems I want to solve. Sometimes I'll just sit in peace. But I'm able to sit still and feel relaxed. And I get up and I feel so much more just in the moment and at peace. And sometimes now my wife will say to me, "Hey, Ryan, I can see you're getting wound up. Go meditate." She even now will tell me, "This would be great for you to go do."
I could have used that last night in our family. Somebody could have told me to go meditate. That would have been helpful.
Yeah. So things get hectic or whatever else. And I could see my wife was like, "Hey, she's now she knows me well enough. She can identify when I need to probably go do that."
How long is your meditation session typically?
30 minutes.
Okay.
If I'm lucky on like an off day, I'll do 45 minutes to an hour. but a half an hour is usually a good routine for me, and I feel really good with that. And it even got, Nate, to the point where my executives be like, hey, Ryan, we can tell the way you're talking about this problem, you've been meditating on this. And so they
Oh.
even like it got into my executive team, and with my family, they all could see how it was utilized and how it had impacted my life.
You said, that was 5 years ago that you made this change, and you say you basically haven't missed a day in terms of having this discipline. Are there other aspects to this? So you got your diet, your meditation, exercise, I'm assuming is part of
Yes.
this. Like, what are you doing for exercise, and how are you doing that?
Yeah, so I just walk on a treadmill. I don't do anything intense, but I just walk, and I talk on the phone or listen to podcasts, and it just helps me. But I'm not a hardcore exerciser. But that walking for 30 minutes, I don't know what it is, but that helps me a lot too. And I found that it's better for me than a sprint or hard workouts too. That just works well for me. I feel better. I feel good all day that way.
It's so interesting to me because before COVID hit, I was playing basketball 5 days a week, and I got into probably the best shape I'd been in a decade. And then COVID hits, and I can no longer play basketball. And I got to do something. Well, I hate running. I hate it, but I've got to do something. And then I realized, well, you know what? If I can, they call it temptation bundling. I put on, a podcast while I run, suddenly I could run, but it has to be outside. I still can't run on a treadmill. I get too bored. So it was interesting for me. It took a while to figure out, but once I figured it out, it's like, oh, I can run. I just have to run under the right circumstances. And I need to spend time earlier in the day figuring out what I'm going to listen to so that I'm excited to go run, because then it becomes about listening to the podcast. And so that's cool to hear that so much of this was just your experimentation to get to the point that you found something that worked for you.
Yeah, and I love your example there. It was all these iterations. I did some like hardcore exercising, and I found that I didn't feel as good throughout the day. And like you said, I started to look forward to kind of it was almost relaxing but good exercise while I listened to a podcast or a book or learned something. And I was like, man, I look forward to that.
Yeah, now you look forward to it. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, last question about this. How about sleep? I'm assuming sleep is a big part of this. You just look like you're somebody who's getting enough sleep.
Well, that book, Why We Sleep, that had a big impact on my life.
The Cal Berkeley professor.
Yeah, and I finally I don't think I really in my life appreciated enough just how critical sleep is to everything else that we do in our day-to-day life. Are you grabbing the book? Look at that. That's it. Yes. Yeah, that reading that book had a big impact on me. And one of the big things I started to do was a routine of when I wake up every morning. And I've tried, even on days that, sometimes it's not practical for me with a family and other responsibilities to go to bed right at the right same time every night. I haven't been able to consistently do that. But I get up at 6:30 no matter what. And now my body feels like it just does it on its own. And that I feel like I get better sleep because of that.
Interesting. Well, I'm sure we could keep going, and I think it's interesting that you haven't publicized kind of your program, because it's probably still evolving. Actually, I mean, maybe the juice thing works for you right now, but in 6 months you need something else. But I really appreciate the importance of just iterating, tinkering to try to figure out something that works for you. Well, I know we keep going. You probably have other lessons you could share, but we're probably about out of time. So I'll put it back to you. Do you want to wrap up here, or do you want to share one more lesson?
Well, I'll say this. I just think that for your kids or my kids, that I want them to have big imaginations, and I want them to dream big. But we have to have the discipline every day to be able to accomplish those big dreams. And that was a great lesson for me that I'll carry with me the rest of my life. And thanks for having me, Nate.
Well, I am so grateful that you'd come on. I admire you. All of your employees that have worked for you, they admire you, and you have a lot of them. You've been so incredibly successful in so many areas of your life. So I'm just grateful that you could share this lesson with me today. And it was so great to connect again.
Thanks a lot, Nate.